Hey, what's up, everybody? It is Wednesday, the 24th of August. I think I'm going to continue with Wednesdays being a story day. So it is time for another embarrassing story from my life. Today's story is going to be the worst I ever bombed on stage. Okay, well, let's get into this. So, I think it was November 2014. So, well, let's take it back from the start. So, I've been a fan of comedy and a fan of podcasts and a lot of comedians stuff for about 3 or 4 years now, especially the Opie and Anthony show with Patrice O'Neill, Bill Burr's podcasts and his stand-up, Louis C.K.'s stand-up, and Hannibal Buress, and a lot of New York comedians, and I just decided I'd love to be that kind of witty and funny and have that insight of the comedians. So, well, anyway, it was just a big goal of mine to get up on stage and try stand-up comedy. So, I think it was November 2014 that I booked myself a gig in the heart of Newcastle for January 19th, 2015. So I literally had a month to, it was almost 3 months or so to prepare for this gig. The gig, which eventually, by the time when I got there on the night, I was shaking, going out. Had to get the metro to the place. And of course, it's just one of the most nerve-wracking things ever. You just don't know who's going to show up, how many people's going to be there, what the crowd's going to be like. You're literally going in on a blank slate. But I'd had 3 months to prepare and write what I thought was the funniest jokes I could have written at the time. So I get there, and I think there's 2 audience members, and there's about 8 comedians ready to go on stage. And we just decided to go ahead with the show and kind of have the comedians as the audience members. And I think I go up 4th and don't do well. And to anyone who does well on the first time, screw you. You learn a lot from failure in life, I think, and stand-up comedy is definitely something that you can't just... I heard Trevor Noah saying that he went up and on his first stand-up gig and just killed the room, and I was like, really? And also, I don't know. I think it's a bad omen if you do well on your first gig. It's a bad thing to do well your first time of doing anything, just in general, because it means that you get that feeling that you don't have to improve, or that you're invincible, or that something's easy, and then when you do it the second or third time and you fail and struggle, then you kind of give up on it. So anyway, did that gig, didn't do too well, but neither did any of the comedians really. It was nice to meet some people, and then I did about 5 or 6 gigs throughout that year of 2015, and I applied for a big gig. It was a Wednesday night, and it was called the Red Raw night. It was at the Stand, and the Stand's a chain of comedy clubs throughout the UK. There's one in Newcastle, which I'd been... The first time I ever saw live comedy was there, and my goal, my honest to God first goal doing stand-up comedy was to get a spot at the Stand, which I eventually did. I had you get 2 spots, which are 2 months apart from each other. And my first one was in November 2015, so it took me a year to get on the stage, but I did it, and I'd done about 5 or 6 gigs prior to, and kind of every gig that I did stupidly was throwing out material and starting again, and just not getting a great reaction, but just kind of persevering through it and understanding the process. And it comes to the night of the November 2015 gig at the Stand. Again, I go, do you know, I've got some really funny stuff here. Let's talk about this. Brand new stuff, untested. Go into it. So I get to the Stand early. I go into the kind of room, the kind of green room. Never met any of the guys before. Say hello, get chatting to them. Everyone's quite nice. Bearing in mind, I'm flying at 10 a.m. to go see my fiance at the time in Knoxville the next day. So I've got a few things on my mind. There's some like 45-year-old Irish guys there, dead canny, and then there's like some girls. And so I think I was going up fourth or fifth. And as I'm just watching this room fill out, it just keeps getting busier and busier and busier, and they're turning people away at the door. This is just a little basement room. Well, it's actually a pretty big basement room. I think it fit about 350 people in there at least. And I'm just going, oh shit. I'm actually quite like excited for the challenge of it, because I was going on fifth, so I was looking at people, and I was watching comedians from the room go up, and they were doing really well. But I don't know. So the room is kind of filled up with a lot of like student-y aged people kind of my age at the time, or a bit younger, and yeah, the jokes that were going down well were very, like, honestly, like, which is something that really annoys me in stand-up comedy. The jokes that were hitting really well with the audience. At the end of the day, it's about being funny, and if you make people laugh, then great. But it was like jokes that you get. Some guy went up there and told jokes as if he'd been texted them by a taxi driver, and he was killing. And I was sat there going, okay, he's doing well, he's funny. If they're like that level, then they're gonna like this. Well, let me tell you, I get it. I watch people. I get nervous. The MC, she's a girl. She's doing really well. She's kind of improving and doing well. She's obviously got a bit of experience. She calls my name. She brings me up to play the music. I get up on stage and look out, and this, when you get up on stage, you are literally playing away from home. If people don't know your name, they don't like you. It's like, okay, let's see what you got. I don't know. It just felt like there's nothing like stand-up comedy to feel instantly judged. Which it's okay. I got up there and told my first joke. And my first joke was, what was it again? How to say this? It was something along the lines of, don't you hate it when your parents ask you to Google something on your computer? Something like, I couldn't believe it when they asked me to look for mature Portugal holidays. Which obviously there's a I thought, oh, that's quite a good little joke, and it did well actually. Actually, quite a few people laughed. It felt good, and so from there, that's as good as it got. Because from there it went for like, I can't imagine something diving so fast from such a height, like a friggin' hawk. So that joke went well, and then my next line was, which is true. So my next line was, so my brother's got Down syndrome, and the crowd goes from, which I don't know. For some reason, I thought that. So my brother does have Down syndrome, and yeah, I do make fun of it sometimes. But because I've lived with him my whole life. For me, this is a totally fine topic to go along with. Other people, clearly, who don't see, it's a weird thing when you've lived with something like that your whole life. You don't know any different. So when you bring it along to the whole new group of people, I think they either they don't know what it's about, or they get offended by it already, or they're ready to be offended, or they feel like they can't laugh because they're told that I don't know. Anyway, so my next line was, my brother has Down syndrome. Room silent. From 350 people actually quite enjoying a joke, to silence. And the next, so the premise of my next joke, okay, I'm going to explain it to you because I didn't get a chance to explain it on stage, obviously. The premise of my next joke was when we were kids, I'd always watch TV with him, and I was he made me really lazy because every time I go, Matthew, we just get us a packet of crisps from next door, he'd go and do it. Matthew, will you? Oh, you make us drink. He'd go and do it. I think out of the love of his own heart, he'd go and do it for me. He wouldn't kind of. It was a very selfless. He's a very selfless guy. He's a lovely guy. Matthew, will you do this? To the point where I got so lazy, and I expected Matthew to do stuff, that in my head, and at one time I needed a pee. I was bursting for a wee, and I said to him, "No, I didn't say this. This is the joke." And I was just thinking, and I looked down at I said, "Matthew, will you come over here?" And the whole joke was pretty much me asking me to piss in Matthew's mouth and then him go spit it out in the toilet because I was too lazy to. Is that a shit joke? For me, that's hilarious. that I don't know, but clearly it was a shit. And again, it was the first time I ever told it, and there's a million ways to tell a joke, and one way that I told it was clearly. I still think that's quite funny. I don't know, but I totally bombed with it, and I can remember hearing silence, apart from this one girl about 3 rows back, looking down at her head, like hand on her brow, looking down and just laughing out of just awkwardness. And I remember there's this 10 out of 10 girl in the front row who, as I was walking up, I was like, if I can make her laugh, I'll feel good about myself. I had a fiance at the time, but if I can make her laugh, I'll feel really good about myself. And just, I don't know. And so once I kind of told that, and I just kept it going, and it just kept getting worse. Like I kept and just that probably was only like 15 seconds, but it felt like 2 minutes, And I remember the music coming on and this MC just coming and grabbing the microphone off me pretty much, and Chris Ainsley, ladies and gentlemen, and then everyone kind of. But bear in mind, this Red Raw Night was for amateur comedians, like people who'd never be on, who maybe had 1 or 2 gigs, so I kind of walked off stage, just like looking down, couldn't look at any, because you have to walk through the audience. Looking down, getting to the green room, and just going. And I remember as I'm walking off stage, this girl is pretty much taking the premise of my joke and saying it about doing it to like a grandma and how weird that would be and how weird should. Yeah, and then next time I'm going to go piss in my daughter's mouth or something else, and the whole crowd was just laughing, and I was like, you fucking. I don't know. I guess you got to do what you got to do to make people laugh, but I don't know, I came out with kind of just sheer just deflation and embarrassment, and those 2 Irish guys were like, you know what, that's actually a story on stage you could tell next time, is the worst time you bombed. And I was like, yeah. Interestingly, I've never been on stage since. That was a hard thing to go from like a room where you're not doing well in front of like 7 or 8 people, or learning your craft in front of 7 or 8 people, to then have this kind of reachy goal of going on stage and performing in front of hundreds of people, but really not being ready for it at all, just kind of doing it and going, this is my first stand-up goal, I can't wait for this, and then just bombing so hard. It's like probably meeting, like if I was to meet I don't know. It's like if you meet one of your heroes. If I was to meet Obama and he hadn't, I'm trying to think. If shook his hand and he hadn't, he hadn't wiped from coming out the toilet. I don't know. Something that way, like something that an experience that you expect to be really good is so disappointing. It's so. I don't know, but. this is just I'm just rambling on. Let's wrap this up. Anyway, so I went straight pretty much after that. I spent about 2 minutes in the green room and was like, oh, I've got to go. I've got a flight to catch. Shook all the comedians' hands and left out the back door again. Had to walk through a bit of the crowd while this woman's still just ripping on me. And I remember this going outside and ready to go up the stairs from the basement, and this guy stops me and goes, hey, you all right? Like, you work there at the stand? He's like, what's your name? I was like, oh, Chris. He's like, yeah, that's how things go sometimes, man. And I was like, yeah, well, it was nice to meet you. It was nice and humble. I had to get the metro home and just looking around everyone on the metro, just thinking they probably know what's just happened. And then kind of come to the realization that there was a few hundred people there that are going to recognize me for what I did that night. So if I ever see them in Newcastle or ever see them out, they're going to, why do I know that guy? Oh, yeah. Do you know? I still stand by it. I still think that's a funny premise. I just didn't know how to tell it right at the time. And after speaking to one of my friends, he was just like, you try to do your 5th comedy special on your 6th show you've ever done. I was like, ugh, yeah, out of my depth. And then I got an email through from the stand a week later or so saying, due to the offensive material of your first show, you've not been invited back to do your second one, pretty much. Just jog on and pretty much never apply to come here again. Can you believe that? Is that the state of comedy at the minute? Where someone bombs so hard about pissing in their own disabled brother's mouth. I still think it's a good premise. I still think it's got legs. But, yeah, we'll see. Will I ever go back and stand up and do another stage show again? I think so. I think it's just a bit of a thing to shake. It's been about 8 months since, and I haven't. But, I need to get some more mic time doing other things first, probably, and then, I don't know. Yeah, let's wrap this up, Chris. Yeah, that's my really embarrassing story about how I first bombed. If anyone else has any other stories about how they bombed, please let me know. Please make me feel a lot better about myself. If anyone has worse stories than that, please, again. Oh, yeah, as a side note, actually, I rang into the Jim Norton and Vice show a few months later and kind of told him about it, and he was like, do you know that is so standard in stand-up comedy? That's just fine and you'll get over it. And the reason that all those people watching you aren't all stand-up comedians is because of exactly what you went through. And I was like, yeah, you know what, you're right. You know what, you come and try to do this. Do you know, I could have went out and just told a load of freaking text jokes. I could have asked Barry from East Coast Taxis if he could text me his top 20 best jokes in a text, and I probably could have killed the room, but I'll try to do something different. And it fell flat on my face. But what can you do? Yeah, I'll speak to you tomorrow for some more podcasts, and that's been my really embarrassing bombing story. See you later. See you later. See you later.